square. Can you see this small white cube? That white cube plugs into your Apple iPhone or your Google Android program, and you can then take a credit card and swipe the data and do mobile shopping. It's a very interesting idea for mobile shopping and also for small business owners to connect through mobile commerce. In fact, we noticed that AdMob, the mobile advertising network that has only been around since 2006, just posted its 2 billionth mobile ad. So mobility in advertising is a huge, huge trend that is only going to continue to grow, and the commerce models have tremendous promise. So let's look at the second trend. We'll go through 4 today. The second trend is about ethics and fair play. Today, the consumer wants a business that is going to treat them with empathy and respect. As a result, the management principle is not only do you need to provide value, you need to have values. It is incredibly important in today's world that you are a company with strong integrity and have a story that consumers can respect. So one example of that is the return to what we could call decorum and grace. This is a company out of Brooklyn called Paperless Post. And what they've done is they've brought back through electronic communications the gesture of writing a handwritten note. So a very interesting company that is bringing back the focus on proper invitations, letter writing, yet it's all done through the internet. So in place of sending an email to say, please come to my party, you can send these very proper, almost handwritten invitations. The rise of manners, the return of professionalism is also noted in some other ways. I went on to babycenter.com. This is a website where you can go and look up baby names and their popularity. And for some reason, over the last 2 years, this nickname called Sully, S-U-L-L-Y, has become very popular in America. Well, the reason that is that we had a pilot named Captain Sully Sullenberger who landed an airplane in the Hudson River in New York City. Did you see this story? This was a time when the financial crisis was rocking New York. There was no good news. People felt horrible about things. And suddenly there was this person with tremendous character who did this amazing thing. And so we look for these cultural signals this way to understand that there are these shifts happening, that people are looking for companies and brands to have this grace and to have this character. We also see this idea that there's a movement toward more personal responsibility in the workplace. One company that demonstrates this is called Gore-Tex. Gore-Tex has what could be described as a very interesting business model. They think that bosses are a bad idea. The reason they think that is they think that there's too many layers and that people lose responsibility for their own conduct. So what Gore-Tex does is they promote people to basically control their existence. One of the programs they do is they publish all executive expense reports on the company intranet for everyone to see. So a great example of creating a flat structure that is totally transparent. The other thing we saw during the recession was out-of-work people actually volunteering. So some very hopeful signs in the economy. This is one of my favorite PowerPoint charts of all time. This is a PowerPoint chart that came from the US Army, United States Army, to describe the problems that they're having in Afghanistan. I think this chart says it all. I think the problems in Afghanistan start with this chart. If anyone can explain it to me, I'll give you $1 million. But I put this into my presentation because in all of our data, people are looking for simplicity. They're looking for people to speak plainly. And that goes for companies as well. In fact, in America, two of the most popular companies are Geico. It's a car insurance company with a little lizard. I don't know if you've ever seen these ads. They have a very simple message. 15 minutes could save you a lot of money. That's all they say, and they say it over and over again. They have a very simple business model, and from my experience, it works. You save money with Geico. There's also a company called Progressive that does kind of the same thing. What's interesting is that in our data in Brand Asset Valuator, these are very highly differentiated brands. And what's interesting to me is that those are low interest categories. Do you get up in the morning and think about your auto insurance? And yet these have become very cultural brands because they are so simple. Another thing we're seeing with this rise toward empathy and respect is more proper venture capital models that take time to build responsible businesses. Now, Jacqueline Novakrantz, who's the founder of the Acumen Fund, is that type of an investor. She definitely wants performance out of her business models, but she also wants them to have purpose. And she's become one of the leading waves of responsible, socially driven venture capital firms out there. Another great example of a company that is a model for transparency is Patagonia. Patagonia has a website called the Footprint Chronicles. And in it, you can track the carbon footprint and the social responsibility of every product that they sell. They actually go on to tell you the good and the bad, and they invite you to go onto the website to give them comments on how they could improve their value chain. So in many of these models, we see the collapse of the consumer and the marketer, the consumer and the manufacturer, where there is no line between them and there is more open discussion. Another interesting story comes from a brand new popular TV show in America called Undercover Boss. In Undercover Boss, it's a 1-hour show that's kind of like the exact opposite of Donald Trump. The CEO goes and works as an employee to learn what is good and what is bad about his or her business. Now, this is a story of the CEO from Waste Management who rode on the back of garbage trucks, and his story was so compelling that the day after the show ran, the stock price went up 12%. They thought this was just a coincidence, but the next 5 companies that have been on the show, their stock price has also gone up the day after. Now, I don't know if it's a trading strategy for a hedge fund, but the idea here is that increasingly consumers want to see your struggles. They want to know how we think in our businesses. They want to know, even if we make a decision that is unpopular, they'd like to understand how we went through that process of decision making. And that's exactly what this CEO did. He talked about the challenges of motivating and keeping his employees happy and the costs that were associated with them. So I think it's a new level of transparency into companies that is, again, connecting on that idea of kindness and empathy that we talked about earlier. Now, we're seeing lots of movement away from concerns about privacy, even as there are concerns toward Google and Facebook and others. Many of the data we see is that people are not too concerned about giving up information if they get something in return. Enter a brand new online grocery store called Alice.com. What Alice does is it allows you to give up information to them about your purchasing habits, What type of toothpaste do you buy? You know, what are your habits in the grocery store? As a result, they give that information to manufacturers, and manufacturers pass along wholesale prices to the customers of Alice. So in exchange for information, you have consumers working directly with manufacturers